My name is Kutschireiter, and in this short video, I am going to introduce a biologically plausible neural network for circular Kalman filtering with this joint work with Melanie Basnak, Rachel Wilson, and Jan Drugowitsch from the Harvard Medical School. So before we dive in, let me introduce the Tunisian desert ant. These animals are known for their masterful navigational skills, and when they forage for food in the remarkably featureless desert, they have to completely rely on internal path integration, which is inherently noisy and error-prone. So when they return home, they know they are inevitably uncertain about the precise location of their nest, and thus engage in a strategic search behavior that is adapted to their own internal uncertainty. Computing with uncertainties is a hallmark of Bayesian inference. And today, in light of such examples, we ask ourselves in this work whether the computations underlying spatial navigations are compatible with dynamic Bayesian inference in general, and also how they are implemented in the brain in terms of neuronal activities. As an example organism to study these questions, we chose the Drosophila fruit fly for its experimental accessibility. This animal has a brain region, the so-called ellipsoid body, which represents its heading direction or spatial orientation as a bump of neural activity. A typical experiment is to place the fly in a virtual arena on a cushioned ball that is able to move the visual scene. As the fly and the visual scene turns, so does the bump of activity, and it has been shown that the bump position is able to accurately track the orientation of the scene. Ring-attractor models qualitatively capture this behavior, but these models lack a notion of uncertainty. Here, we want to understand whether the fly also keeps track of its heading uncertainty and whether it actively uses this uncertainty in a Bayesian sense. For this, we first formulated a normative framework that considers orientation tracking as a dynamic Bayesian inference task and solve it with a circular equivalent of the Kalman filter, the technical details of which can be found in our recent preprint. Importantly, we derive dynamic equations for both the heading estimate as well as its associated certainty, which we assume to correspond to the parameters of a Mises distribution. The update equations of the estimate here relies both on the reliability of the external sensory cues, for instance, visual input, as well as its internal certainty. We show in simulations that the estimate resulting from this circular Kalman filter closely follows a visual cue according to the cue's reliability. Further, in absence of such a cue, which you might want to call darkness or minimal reliability, the estimate deviates from the true heading over time, and the internal certainty decreases accordingly. As a second step, we encode estimate and associated certainty in the bump of neural activity, where the estimate determines the position and the certainty scales the amplitude of the bump. With this encoding scheme in mind, we derive recurrent neural network dynamics that follow the dynamics of the normative model in terms of bump position and bump amplitude. We were further able to map this dynamics onto a network with 3 different subpopulations that mirror the known Drosophila connectome. Taken together, our model demonstrates that such a biological network could in principle implement a circular Kalman filter, which leads to experimentally testable predictions. And now, if you're curious and you want to know more about our work, please join our poster discussion at the main conference.